Imagine this scene. An otherwise successful professional just received some difficult feedback at work. It wasn't a catastrophe, just a challenging piece of criticism about a recent project. Most people in this situation might call a trusted mentor. They might vent to their partner or a close friend over text. But this person does something entirely different. They retreat into a quiet, intense focus. Instead of opening their phone to call someone, they open a new tab on their computer. Within 30 minutes, they've created a detailed spreadsheet. It's a complete self-authored performance improvement plan, complete with metrics, timelines, and resource links. From the outside, this looks like extreme competence and professionalism. And in many ways, it is. But underneath the efficiency, a different story is unfolding. It's a story of isolation mistaken for strength. So what is really going on behind the silence? This pattern of behavior, this instinct to turn inward and figure everything out alone, has a name. This is not just independence. It's a pattern that some psychologists, drawing from attachment theory, call compulsive self-reliance. The name itself holds the critical distinction. Healthy self-sufficiency is a choice made from a place of security. You know you can rely on others, so you feel free to rely on yourself. But compulsive self-reliance is different. It doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like the only option available. It's a deeply ingrained belief that when things get truly difficult, you are fundamentally on your own. This instinct is often forged in early environments where reaching out for support was inconsistent, unhelpful, or even met with negative reactions. So the brain, in its incredible adaptability, learns to stop sending the signal outward and instead routes all distress calls internally. Over a lifetime, that adaptive response becomes an automatic, unconscious way of being. In this video, we're going to go deeper. We will explore exactly why this happens, how it silently shapes your relationships, and most importantly, we will uncover a simple, powerful first step you can take to build a bridge to the people you trust. This is about understanding the architecture of your own fortress and realizing you were the one who built it. To truly understand how this pattern shows up, let's move away from the abstract and look at a few concrete examples. Consider the health scare. A patient gets an unclear yet troubling test result from their physician. The doctor says not to worry yet, that they'll do more tests, but the uncertainty is now a living presence. The impulse for connection, to call a loved one for comfort, flickers for a moment and then dies. Instead, they spend the next 8 hours falling down a rabbit hole of medical journals and obscure forums. They aren't just Googling symptoms. They are cross-referencing studies, learning terminology, and building a differential diagnosis in their own head. Their goal is not comfort. Their goal is to master the uncertainty by knowing every possible outcome. To them, being a passive, emotional patient feels far more terrifying than becoming a self-taught junior researcher. Now let's look at a career crossroads. Someone is deeply unhappy in their job, and the thought of leaving has been growing for months. But they don't mention this to their partner, not really. Instead, they operate in secret. Late at night, they are updating their resume, secretly applying for jobs in another city, and building complex budgets for a hypothetical life. They might even take a solo trip to scout a new neighborhood without ever explaining the trip's true purpose. It's only when they have a firm offer, a complete plan, and answers to every conceivable question that they finally present the information to their partner. They see it as presenting a finished solution, not a messy problem. but their partner experiences it as being handed a decision that they had no part in making. Finally, consider the small, almost trivial social slight. After a party, this person lies awake replaying a single, slightly awkward conversation. Did their joke land wrong? Was that person's smile a little strained? You're the person who rehearses a simple phone call in your head 3 times before dialing, not because you're anxious, but because you need to be prepared for every possible outcome. They analyze it from every angle, searching for social data, when a simple text to a friend saying, "Was that weird?" would resolve it in seconds. But the path of asking is so overgrown from disuse, it feels impassable. The path of intense solitary analysis, however, is a superhighway. These examples reveal more than just a preference for solitude. They reveal a cognitive process that is both a gift and a burden. This brings us to the rich but exhausting inner world of the compulsively self-reliant person. The original video touched on metacognition, the act of thinking about your own thinking. We're going to give this process a more visceral name, the internal editor. For most people, a thought or feeling emerges and can be shared in a relatively raw form. For the person with a powerful internal editor, this is almost impossible. Imagine your mind isn't just a place where thoughts happen. Imagine it's a high-end publishing house. A raw idea, a flicker of emotion, is like a first draft manuscript. But before that manuscript can ever see the light of day, it has to go through your internal editor. This editor is ruthless, brilliant, and works 24/7. It fact-checks every feeling and cross-references every opinion against past data. It demands a polished, finished, perfectly articulated final edition before you are allowed to speak a single sentence aloud. By the time a thought is ready to be shared, it has been edited, revised, and footnoted so extensively that it barely resembles the original vulnerable feeling. This is why, when you finally do speak, you might sound like you're delivering a finished thesis, not sharing a feeling. And this process is cognitively expensive. It consumes a tremendous amount of mental energy. This isn't just thinking. It's a constant, resource-draining process that leads to a specific kind of burnout. It's the exhaustion of performing 1,000 invisible tasks before a single visible one is even attempted. But this internal pressure doesn't just exhaust you. It sends a powerful, often unintended message to those closest to you. What is that message? This intense internal world creates what I call the silent barrier in relationships. From your side, the logic is sound. You feel you're protecting your loved ones by not being a burden. Why bring them a messy problem when you can bring them a clean solution later? Why worry them with your anxiety when you can process it yourself? It feels like an act of love, of care. But your silence isn't heard as protection. It's heard as exclusion. It creates a silent barrier they don't know how to cross. Now, if you are the person who loves someone like this, you know this feeling intimately. You see their strength and their brilliance, and you admire it. You know the warmth and love are real, but you also feel that a final door is always locked. Loving them feels like standing outside a beautiful, soundproof glass house. You can see all the life and activity inside, the rich world of their thoughts, but you can't hear a thing. You knock, but you're never sure if they even know you're there. And this is the core conflict. One person's attempt at protection is another person's experience of rejection. Neither side is wrong, but both sides are left feeling lonely. After hearing all of this, it's easy to see this pattern as a problem to be fixed, as a kind of damage. But that misses the most important, most powerful part of this story. This compulsive self-reliance wasn't built in a time of peace and safety. It was scaffolding you constructed in a storm to hold yourself up when nothing else would. It's a testament not to your weakness, but to your profound and desperate strength. You can't be shamed for how you survived. When the world felt unreliable, you learned to become the most reliable person you know. When support was absent, you learned to become your own support. That is a remarkable human achievement. The challenge now is not to tear down that achievement. It's to realize that the storm may have passed, and what was once life-saving scaffolding can, in times of peace, start to feel like a cage. It keeps you safe, but it also keeps others out. But here is the beautiful part. You were the builder. And because you were the builder, you hold the blueprints. You can choose to dismantle it, piece by piece, not in shame, but with the pride of a survivor who is now ready to learn how to live. So the question isn't, how do I stop being self-reliant? The real question is, how can I begin to practice the skill of letting someone else in, even just a little? This leads us to the most practical part of our conversation. The idea of just asking for help can be completely overwhelming. It feels like a massive step, a leap across a chasm. So we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to start with something much smaller, an experiment I call the two-sentence rule. The next time you feel that familiar pull to retreat and figure something out entirely on your own, I want you to try this. Find one trusted person in your life. It could be a friend, a partner, a sibling, and you are going to send them just 2 sentences. Sentence number 1 states the internal feeling. I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by this project at work. My head is kind of spinning after that meeting. Now, sentence number 2 is the crucial part. It is the non-ask. I don't need a solution. I just wanted to say it out loud. Or just wanted to get that thought out of my own head for a second. That's it. Notice what this does. It's not about asking for help. It's about practicing the act of not being alone with a thought. You are creating a tiny crack in the wall of your fortress just to let a little bit of light in. This small act lowers the stakes of connection and starts building a new neural pathway, one where sharing isn't a prelude to being a burden, but simply a way to be human, together. If this way of looking at psychology resonates with you, moving from deep understanding to clear action, consider subscribing. We explore the why and the what now of human behavior every single week. So let's bring this all together. We've seen that compulsive self-reliance isn't a simple personality trait or a character flaw. It's a learned survival skill, a piece of psychological scaffolding that may have outlived its original purpose. We've seen how the internal editor creates a world of cognitive burnout, making it hard to share anything less than a perfect, finished thought. And we've explored the painful gap it can create in relationships, where one person's protection feels like another's rejection. Remember the person from the beginning, the one who builds a spreadsheet instead of venting? We can now see that they aren't cold or robotic. They are simply using the only tool they were ever given, the one they had to build themselves. The goal is not to take that tool away. The goal is to give them a bigger toolbox, one that includes the two-sentence rule and other ways to let people in. Your ability to figure things out alone is a superpower. Your willingness to learn how to not be alone is wisdom. Your ability to survive alone is your history. Your decision to connect is your future. Practicing that two-sentence rule is a great first start on the path to building that future. If you are looking for a more structured way to untangle these kinds of thought loops, we have some resources in the description. As a reminder, this video is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional advice from a qualified therapist or counselor. If these topics are resonating deeply, speaking with a professional is a wonderful act of self-reliance. To continue exploring related topics, watch our video on the psychology of perfectionism next. Thank you for watching.